welcome to the very first episode of the Tech Savy Series. This is where we're going to explore how technology transforms the places we live, work, and connect. Focusing on cutting-edge technology in luxury homes, we're here to show you what's possible when design and technology come together. My name's Atlas. I'm your co-host here. I'm with our CEO, Trevor Culmer. He's our co-host. And today, we're excited to bring you our very first guest. This is Jason. Jason, give us a spiel on who you are, what you're up to, and why we brought you on today.
Hey, right on. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Atlas, Trevor, this is really cool, really neat. I'm really excited for you guys and where this is going. So, my name is Jason Sims, husband, father of two teenage boys, founder of Simply Controlled. Simply Controlled is a small niche distributor focusing on our dealers and being able to empower them to be able to say yes and be successful in their businesses. We don't just supply boxes. We really do support you with those solutions, being able to ensure that your projects go off without a hitch and that your customers have confidence in with what you're doing. And we're really thankful to be here today.
Distribution obviously is not something a lot of people are paying a lot of attention to. They just know that they order something and it just gets there. So as a distributor, how do you find you support us, for example, in business and supporting our clients at the end of the game?
Yeah, I think that distribution has really evolved over time. I think that before it was a matter of, hit, click, and, products arrive at your door, even if that's a virtue of what Amazon is. Today, we're looking to find, the solutions to specific, projects that you're doing, and I feel that it's not as much as a click and go. You need to be able to understand with what the environment is that you're looking to create. Mm-hmm. And so we're an extension of your projects, and we're here to basically support you.
Great. And Trevor, how long have we worked with Simply Controlled for now?
Actually, Jason, funny enough, we've been working together with Simply Controlled for the last year. I believe it was last year. We met in the airport going to Vancouver for a CDA event. But that was the second time we've met. Jason was actually one of the first distributors that we met when we were opening the company. So it was just two of us at the time, and we had no sales and we were doing nothing. And so he was nice enough to take meetings with us and help steer us a little bit. Jason's always been very helpful for us. So that's why we're glad we're talking to you. We always appreciate the advice. I was going to say, a lot of people in the industry, very well connected. You have been in the industry for a while. You always have a finger on the pulse of what's coming up. I just want to know if there's anything coming up in the future that you're looking forward to, products that we should be excited about, that we should tell our customers about from your perspective.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think that it's not even as much as what the specific technology is, it's how it can adapt to our use and how we use it in a home, and being able to pull and push an environment, a feeling. If you are overexcited, that your house can follow you in the sense of sound and lighting, be able to bring you into an emotion or out of an emotion, whether you are preparing for a video podcast and you're a little anxious, to having it that you've got family or friends coming over and you're entertaining, and being able to have it that your systems know you. They can evolve with you. And I feel that human-centric lighting, knowledge of how you like to live your life throughout the course of a day, whether that is music, whether that is different styles of music at different times of the day, and being able to improve your own lifestyle with what you're trying to do. So I don't know if that encapsulates the question, but I definitely feel that our technology is getting to a point where they're an expansion of just it being a remote control to a living, entity with your space.
But no, you don't have any automatic toilets or anything, flying cars or anything coming out. That we should get the jump on.
I think it's about matter of trusted and true. You work with the items that are the core foundation, and you improve on that. You expand on what you already succeed at. Our industry has been known for creating our customers as guinea pigs, and that fails miserably.
Yeah.
And so I know that in my discussions and meetings with you over time, that's one, area that I think that you do exceptionally well. You have always, really invested in time into understanding if a product is appropriate for your business, and not just making your first instinct to buy a product and install it in the customer's house. So the kudos to you.
Oh, thanks.
And on that note of the failure piece, because I think that's important. You mentioned we use clients as guinea pigs. It fails. It does also win, but it's unfortunate when they fail. Speak to maybe a product you thought wasn't going to fail, or maybe is kind of teetering on that you thought that actually would do a lot better.
I would say that would probably be something like air quality, disaster systems, water valve shutoffs, leak detection. And interestingly enough, that's a core area that hasn't really strengthened, even though today our resources here in Canada with air quality and water, water damage is a very expensive venture that nobody wants to deal with,
Especially here in Calgary. Yep.
And it's just not something that gets taken into account that often. And I think some of the challenges are with that is that you are integrating multiple trades. And so with the builder path, sometimes that becomes a challenge because you're now bringing in multiple trades to need to work and collaborate together to execute. So I think that that's a big one.
It's interesting because it's also something that I don't think about for my home. Like, is my blank and blank in a leak, or is my air quality good? I don't think about it very often, so I actually really like that you pointed that piece out. Go the other way now. So something that maybe you thought, okay, this is cool, but I don't really know if it's going to matter that much. And then it really did matter. Like something that exploded out of nowhere and you said, I didn't see that coming.
I'd say probably LED flex strip.
Okay.
It started off as a novelty. We started seeing different colors, and the kids were putting it into their bedrooms and different areas. And whereas now it's elevated to almost a necessity, to having it that we're including it into saunas, into showers, into kitchens, of course, but now having it that it can be accent or task lighting. And again, it's about pulling and working with emotions and being able to light rooms appropriately.
Yeah, it's definitely grown in popularity for us, and obviously there's some behind the wall here as well. It's something that we notice is huge in the design space as well. So it's an interesting one because it's kind of behind the scenes. It's just lighting somewhere. So I like that. Good to know.
Yeah, and I definitely don't feel that all flex strip LED is created equally.
We had a feeling.
And I think that's a big proponent of it. From people see that you can buy inexpensive lighting on Amazon and different areas, and there's 26 different levels typically of LED flex strip, and with what you get is what you pay for. On the higher levels, the products that you guys support and service, things such as Lotus LED lighting, you get into higher color rendering where you have accuracy of lights, where you now have it that with what the designer envisioned to be able to have it, that countertops and backsplashes and furniture were to highlight and increase the quality of the living area. Those things matter, and with higher quality lighting, you definitely get that. And I think that the other aspect of it is often people will, with less expensive lighting, it'll have what's called lumen decay, or color shifting, and it's not on day one, it's in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And if you execute things properly, you do not have any of those issues and callbacks in different areas. So that's a big one for me.
That's a good note too, because when we introduce these things to our customers, we get a lot of those kinds of questions. Well, why can't I just get this from Amazon, or what's the big difference? And a lot of times it's harder to explain to people, like in the long run, that this strip is going to cost you $50, and this one is going to cost $200. What the difference is, and then 2 years later, when the strip is hanging down and the adhesive is gone and the LEDs are starting to go on them, and then they have to rip it all out and replace it, and then they have to spend that money anyways, usually at a higher price. Nothing stays the same price. It's always harder to explain that, so I'm glad you can speak to that. Yeah, your expertise on that is something to be admired for sure.
Success by failure, right?
Yeah. Well, let's live in the world then of lighting, because it's obviously something you're passionate about, and is something that I would say is an afterthought a lot of the time for a client's home. they're like, just put bulbs in my ceiling. What do we need to play with all these lights for? But as the design focus of light starts to grow or continues to grow, a common phrase that you see out there is light play or wall washing, or you see these videos now where there's a specific palette of stone or hardware that changes with the specific lighting that it's given, whether that's a dark hue, a light hue, a warm temperature, and so on. So when you think about designing a home and you think about light play and wall washing, where do you find we could put a little bit more extra focus in? Or maybe what is your take on that design process? How would you execute it at a high level?
I think in a lot of cases, people think less is more. But in lighting, I actually find that more is less.
Okay.
And less in the aspect of having more lights and having them on different scenes and different uses, so that throughout the course of a day, with natural light coming in, you can accentuate and create different scenes and different feelings in that space. Having it that you have one massive light fixture in an environment is going to cast shadows, and shadows is okay, but having it that they are uniform, you are in control of being able to illuminate the different areas and the different heights and the different textures and substrates that you're trying to show off. I think that becomes more of a factor. So, it could be that a kitchen would have 3 to 4 different lighting aspects on it, whether that is down lights that are standard down lights, flush mount, having flex strip in different areas, having pendants, having the different touch and feel points of how that light is illuminating, I think is key point.
Yeah, and I think, Trevor, you guys had a theater room that he was working with you on, right, to get that going right?
Yeah, and that was actually our introduction to wall washing. We built a theater room. We just put in some pucks and thought it was going to be okay. And then the more we sat in the room with the lights on, the more we started to get a little headaches, and you can't see very well because the lights were very harsh. And then Jason came in and sat in there for just a couple minutes and says, "You're doing this all wrong. You gotta."
Well, you don't know what you don't know. That's fair, right?
So we got some. He introduced us to some alternatives, including some of the Lotus stuff. And then we ended up switching out, with his help, with some of the things that you used a term earlier, human-centric. Then I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. Maybe you can explain some more about human-centric, and then how the LEDs kind of play a part in our health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the first thing is for sure the theater. The theater is not the hospital. Mm-hmm. Casting shadows, that is a key element in a theater environment, right? Not only that, being able to create that lighting that optimizes your screen quality and your experiencing, be able to see the image that you've created from whether it's a high-end video display of a TV panel or projection. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're controlling the light and we're not having any light spill in between us on our rods and cones of our eyes and the screen with what you're seeing to cause any distraction from that. So you're doing it to appeal it. You also don't want to be in a dark room. That's also harder. We're trying to have it that we're making it as easy for our eyes to be able to enjoy, and to your point, not fatiguing, and having it that the right color temperatures are also being utilized, because quite often people will use a cooler white in a theater, and that's kind of the wrong thing. You would not see that in a cinematic theater. And it's so much easier now to create a nice warm environment for theaters. Where it's relaxing and you can stay in that environment for 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on with what you're doing. And so I think that a big one is dim to warm. They call dim to warm, where a light starts at we'll call it 3,000 or 3,200 Kelvin, which is today's kind of more modern white light. And then being able to dim that where it's coming all the way down to, say, 1,600, 1,800 Kelvin. Very warm, very cinematic, very comfortable, very relaxing. And so that's a big one. And then that expands outside of that theater room into the rest of your home. Mm-hmm. And trying to emulate with what we see with the sun, and being able to have it that, from wake up, that we're in a warm feeling, getting going, matching the hues of the sun. And then throughout the day, it gets a little bit cooler, and being able to have it that you have it full brightness, where, those lights basically, they're coming up to a cooler standpoint, and then bringing them back down again throughout the afternoon and evening really actually start to induce melatonin, and so that's the other thing with lighting. It's, you can have it that in your office you might want one lamp that is 5,000 Kelvin, which is a very white blue light, because you've got a project that needs to be done tomorrow. You can't consume any more caffeine. So, whereas in a warmer environment, you're going to be more relaxed. So I feel that that's a big aspect of how you look after looking at light in your home.
I actually really like that you shared that just before Trevor chimes in, because I think about my home that I just moved into, condo, but it's got this weird mix of some whiter lights and then a couple yellows here and there, and every room obviously feels starkly different than the other, and it's not something I used to traditionally think about until I started to notice that white in my home was harsh. Like, it was beaming into my eyes and it didn't make me feel good. I don't know if there's the correlation between that bright white Kelvin and maybe a cortisol spike or something like that, but I never framed it from the sense of the warmer lights are comparable to the sun and the hue of the sun. And so now I'm going to go home and change them all to warmer lights.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So can you elaborate a little bit more maybe on the health side of things? Like, obviously melatonin is important for sleep, but
light in general, not LED, is created equally, and you have different color rendering index, where trying to have it that it's getting to 100% is with what we would see as the sun. And trying to recreate artificial light for our environment is a task, especially for us. We live in a northern climate, so we have different amounts of light that we experience throughout the year. Even different issues with seasonal lighting disorders, where we're not taking in enough light. We're needing to take vitamin D. So if you can start to emulate some of that and be able to put a more concentrated effort in the design of your space, you can definitely have better quality light there, for sure. No difference than 1 hour before bed. You should shut off that blue light phone. Right. That does disrupt us. Those are real things. And Lutron is a key player in that. They've got some fantastic lighting products that be able to look after that in themselves with the Ketra lighting. Lotus Lighting also has some very cool products that can bring you that dim to warm function.
Yeah, well, that's that. I think that answers that pretty good. Speaking of Lutron, that's one of the products that we get from you. Can rely on you for, and your expertise, and more go towards the shading side of things, which also is pretty crucial in lighting as well. There's lots of reasons why we choose Lutron for shades over some of the other companies, and all of which we give to our customers as needed as we go in through the sales process. What is it about Lutron that attracted you when it comes to, like, especially their shading options and things like that? What is it about them over the competition that kind of makes them stand out and be one of the better options?
Hey, for sure, and I don't know if I'd premised with the beginning that my first experience with Lutron was actually as a dealer. So being that I've been in the biz for about 25 years now, it originated as a dealer, integrating Lutron shades and lighting control from way back. And reliability is probably a huge factor. They're the gold standard when it comes to motorized shades, from an aspect of different fabrics that work with the amount of opacity to what you're looking to do, from privacy to letting natural light in, to their motors, which are the most silent in the market. May not seem like that's a big deal until you've heard a motor of a other brand, and it sounds like it should be in your shop, not in your living room. The aspect of their control, you can have a wall of 8 to 10 different shades, and they are synchronous, where they will start and stop equally from one to the next to the next. The product reliability is just, it's unbelievable. The support that you, the dealer, can get from Lutron in being able to call in and get support and design ideas, especially when you start to get to challenges with different shapes and sizes. There's lots of products out there, but not all those products can tick all the boxes that Lutron does. They've even come out with a couple new products where it's more of an affordable product for maybe some of the secondary areas in a home, so that you now can have it where you invest in the luxury products into your main core areas, to, you know, whether it's your living area, your kitchen, dining area. A lot of times where your friends and your family are coming, where they see, and you can have it that you can start to kind of mix that up depending on with where that is. Maybe it's a child's bedroom where you can use a product called the Triathlon Select Series, where they can still have a blackout series, but they're not getting the premium product in their room, you know, until it's their turn. So I feel that that's a big one. The other really cool thing that they've actually come out with is they now have an iPad app that you're able to load software on, and you literally can have it that you can take and face that towards a window, and you can start to emulate with what that will look like. Because the biggest challenge for a homeowner, designer, right, and yourselves is having it that, you know, what is the finished product going to look like? And that's a hard one for people to be able to pick up on. So this is a tool that simplifies that. And that can even be that it's at new construction at a framing standpoint. So you can be standing looking outside of a person's great room where eventually they want to know, how much opacity do I want to be able to have? Do I back onto a pathway? Do I need to be able to have it that I have more of a privacy? Or, oh, you know, I really want to be able to have it that I can still have my windows see-through to the point where my furniture is here. I'm not going to damage my furniture from UV, but I can still see the beautiful space where I've invested in buying a property. So I think that's a really key feature for them. And that's the thing, that Lutron just continues to evolve. They come out with new products. And again, nothing do they ever come out with has, you know, not been true and tested already. When it comes to market, it's go time.
I appreciate that, because obviously we're passionate about Lutron. We have the design books here. We preach them pretty high and heavy, especially that motor that not only lasts a long time battery operated, but that is as silent as a mouse. We have some good contrasts here in the studio to showcase that. So really great to hear your take on that, because I think it's important as a homeowner to know the value of something that they're actually investing in. We have two more questions for you, good sir. One of them is an area we also know you know very well, which is audio. You know, not everybody is what's called an audiophile. If I understand that phrase correctly, it just means somebody that's heavily invested in audio, right?
Yeah, I definitely would say that, you know, an audiophile is even, you know, surpasses my knowledge and expertise. Okay. You know, I think that if a consumer has been listening to music and updating and changing different products within their system for many years, they may have a lot more experience in getting to sit down and enjoy the music a lot more.
Yes.
And an audiophile, I think, you know, it's not everybody is an audiophile, and not every environment is appropriate for what that would look like.
Explain more on that, because I think that's a really crucial piece.
For a theater, for instance, for maybe a great room area, you deal with the environment first. The product is secondary, because you can put very expensive equipment into a poorly sounding room and have a poorly sounding expensive room. Or you can deal with the environment, or choose the products and put them in the places that they should be to optimize the experience with what you're going to, you know, receive with your investment. These days we see that there's, you know, a substantial amount of hard surfaces. We see expansive great rooms and vaulted ceilings and, you know, different hardwoods and different fireplaces with, you know, large stone, you know, environments. And so you really have to be able to understand with what the environment is. Placement for where it's going in the room, I think that's a critical aspect. From an audiophile standpoint, that typically means that, you know, you're listening to a pair of speakers in a stereo format that typically, we'll call it, say, 3, 4, 5 feet into the room, off the sides of the wall. Not really conducive to most homes, especially with, you know, young families. Designers are not always interested in having it that you're putting those products into that area. So you're needing to work together to understand what the customers and, you know, wishes are. But, you know, the one thing is music is it's everything. We know that. It's not often that people go without listening to some form of music or audio throughout a day. And so I think that it really comes down to looking at that space and then choosing the right product. Okay.
And I would say that really aligns, or has aligned well, with Vanguard. Based on what I've learned from Trevor's model and what we hope to provide is what's beneficial for the space, not just plug and play, not just drop it in and here's your speakers, because it does play a factor. And I think of a couple of homes we're doing where they're like full panel tile walls in some of these, more open style rooms, so that harsh surface changes the way the sound bounces. And so they have speakers in these space, and so consideration of what style of speaker. We don't need to put in a higher quality speaker because it's unnecessary and it might sound poor. Is that what I'm kind of understanding?
Yes,
Yes.
somewhat.
Yes and no. Okay, great. Elaborate.
So although we can have these different hard surfaces in different environments, one of the key areas is if it's not just a true dedicated 2-channel listening environment, and it's, say for instance, it's a great room where you're maybe listening to music and also using it for audio for TV viewing. One of the things is having it that you are actually putting in the appropriate size of speakers, whether it's traditional floor standing, in wall, invisible, or in ceiling. And they typically, for monitor, for in wall and ceiling, you typically have small, medium, and large. Yeah. And in some cases, having it that you're not necessarily putting in a pair, but you're putting in multiple pairs. And especially depending on what the size of that area is. We see a large open concept of a great room, kitchen. It might be that you're blending 2 to 3 pairs within that space and adding multiple subwoofers. And a lot of the cases, it's not because you are listening to it that loud, is you're trying to have uniformity throughout the space. And having it that while you're there, that you can hear both left and right channel. One thing that happens often is people say, well, I'm not an audiophile, or I don't listen to it that much. From a background level, really it comes down to physics, where the size of the speakers you choose have an impact, as does the amplification. So if you match, let's say that a customer has a very large, expansive, ceiling. It's 12, 16, 18 feet in height. Well, they really should be using the largest size speakers and multiple of them, so that there's no dead spots within the environment, and there's no hot spots where I'm across the room from you on a sofa, and I have sound that's blasting me, and I cannot hear our conversation. Right? And so that comes into a play. Larger speakers, larger drivers, when powered, you now get a fullness of sound at a background listening level. Yeah. When you use a smaller speaker, you're often having to deal with turning it up. And now that gets to a point where somebody in the house maybe not as comfortable with loud, louder sounds.
Right.
Yeah. And so having, at that point, having them equally positioned, and then also having it that in the better quality speakers, from the tier 1 of Creator Series for monitor audio, for instance, to the tier 2 to the tier 3, you're getting into better technology, better drivers, more
different experience.
Right, more clarity, and then with the amplification, being able to have it that amplifiers have the capability of tuning to the room and having boundary compensation in the speakers. So if they are closer to a wall or to a corner, that it's not giving that large boomy sound, and you're being able to really enjoy that environment a lot better.
So when we deal with our customers and our builders that we work with, and now the designers as well, take all those things into consideration, but we also take into consideration what they're listening to. We kind of get really into the weeds with the customers, and just to figure out, like, if you're going to be listening to opera music in this room, because this is that sitting room or whatever, like, this is what we're going to figure out where you're going to be seated, and the size of the room, so where everything's going to go, so you get the most out of that space and what you're going to be listening to there. We have a lot of people who just, in open rooms, they they're podcast people, and they'll, like, my wife will put our podcast on and she'll just have it playing. That's a different consideration as well. We try to move some of that human-centric piece for the lighting into what we're doing with audio as well, because it is something that once you have it and you're using it, it's something that I find a lot of people use more than they will actually think they do. So that same thing you mentioned earlier, so we don't listen to music, or we don't do it that much, and as soon as they have it, that's all they want to do. So it's good to get, like, your input on that. Yeah, we've been using some of the monitor audio things, and we've been testing it out at the showroom, the stuff that we really like, which is basically all of it. We've been slowly rolling it out to our client and using it as our go-to for those things, because they have some really good stuff. What I wanted to find out, one of the things that we get, thinking about it from the customer side of it, is when we're doing budgeting early on in the project, and we're putting things out based on what they're describing as how they're going to be living in the space, but we have no idea just yet. We always have good, better, best scenarios for them. We always start with the best and then kind of work our way from there. A lot of times they want to know, because sometimes the best may be cost prohibitive or like, you know, a little bit different than the tier right below it. The pricing can be pretty different. What are your thoughts on spending the extra money on the best option in situations versus like going with like the cheaper options in the long run? I mean, not even just monitor audio, but we'll put monitor audio against, like, we have contractor grade speakers, and people are more price conscious, especially right now, and then we're making the argument to them, well, you know, these sound okay, but these are better. I know that they're more. How do you justify that for people?
Yeah, you know, I think that, again, it comes into how much will you be using that product. Of course, the labor, the installation, those remain the same.
Yep.
So now it's just a matter of what is your own expectation to sound and to clarity. And so there's no doubt that moving from a base builder grade to a step up to even to a mid-level product in monitor audio, say the Creator 2 series, it is a big deal because it's now how you hear things, how you know, what that clarity is, what environment you're using. I think that one of the things that we see is that the same brush gets painted throughout the home, and we're seeing that the same level of quality of speakers being used in an ensuite or a den or a secondary environment as it is in the kitchen and the great room. So I think that having it that you spend a little bit of time and where you're investing your dollars per square foot and where you're going to be spending your time, you elevate with what you're trying to do and what your experience you're expecting into the core areas that matter to you. So I think and that's justifiable to most.
We do a little bit of that with the customers there, and then we like to kind of bring them into the decision-making process and then have them, you know, hear things and test it out, and then at the end of the day, they're making their decision based on having the most knowledge of the product, but the price always comes in. That's always the end result, and we try to like move it away from it a little bit so you can get the value, but it's just good to hear your take on that.
For sure. I think that in general, our industry, a lot of the items have been like to have. They're known as luxury for many of the products and services that we offer. I think that started to transition over the last, 5-10 years, and people have become accustomed to having control of their products and of their home a lot more today. I think a lot of people have experienced what we used to hear as home theater in a box. They probably are not replacing that if they're building a new home. They've had that experience. Or, unfortunately, they interviewed and a proper system curated for maybe a past experience, and now there's a little bit of a trust issue from past experiences. And so I find that a lot of times our industry has to overcome that because, the industry is still relatively young and it's growing. It evolved from, we'll call it propeller heads, to now where we're professional organizations, and that we are really trying to be a big part of the homeowner's experience. And I would say even with that, you see that your relationships with your customers, they start at ground level. Before foundation, you're involved, and you're involved all the way through. I would probably put a bet that you touch more points in a home from start to finish, and even past new home warranties, than what any other trade is. And so your relationship is extremely important, and I think that homeowners start to recognize if they've had that experience, and not all dealers are created equally, and not all dealers spend the time to build those relationships, and you guys do. I've seen it, so good on you.
Thank you. It's very important because we'll get the call. The TV's not working. Let's call Vanguard. The internet's down. Let's call Vanguard. The toilet's not flushing. Let's call Vanguard. we're usually the first call for a lot of these things. We do end up having a longer life cycle with the client than a lot of other trades. So we take all of the recommendations seriously, and we take our time to make sure that they feel included in what is being provided, and the decision's theirs, and we do a lot of education to that part. And a lot of our education comes from you, which is why this conversation is always very necessary, because you are the expert. You know, there's people in the industry that's been around for a minute, and you have the knowledge and you have all the the use cases for different things. So we depend on you a lot. So I appreciate.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm just a bridge. I'm just a bridge that works between you and the suppliers. And luckily, I've had a lot of great companies that I worked with, and they support us all. So you know, we're in a fun environment, and the home network is really the foundation that's almost becoming as equally as important as your concrete foundation these days. The one thing you'll know in a moment's notice is if your internet goes down, you're hearing it throughout the house because somebody's not happy.
Yeah.
So that's another area where I think that you guys spend a lot of time in making sure and understanding the customer's needs and how many devices they have on their network. And I think that is, you know, something that expands out of that is I would probably say from an earlier question, what I see will come into play in the years coming is our industry will be heavily relied on for cybersecurity, because we're known as the technology professionals. And I think that's something that I see that in the coming years we'll all be paying for additional apps specifically for cybersecurity. You know?
That is very important, and that's my background is networking. And so a lot of times we won't even sell a project if we can't include a network in there, especially because some of the projects really require it. Like, you can't just expect that you're going to go in and use your Shaw modem router for a 5,000 square foot house and you know everything is going to be fine. And I found like that was kind of missing from the industry a little bit. You know, it wasn't a focus for a lot of people, but everything's online. All the stuff that we do is streaming, and you know, audio and video and camera feeds and all that stuff. It's all network based, so it's very important. So you're right about that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of recommendations, speaking of being the expert, let's get out of maybe the cost conversation now, and let's say you have the opportunity to build your dream home. You have no limitations. You get to pick any products you want, but I'm going to force you to pick 3 things that you have to have in your home. That you have. There's no question whether it's audio or visual or home theater, whatever it is, you name it. 3 products that stand out to you. Maybe they're tried and tested. They're just a passion for you, and you won't go another way. What are your top 3 choices for your dream home system?
Well, first it has to work.
Okay. So a strong network is what he's saying. Yeah.
First network, not as much about the flash as it is that it's simple to use and to operate and to enjoy. Not specifically for me. I guess I still go back to my family. If my family cannot run and operate it simple and easy, then it's not the experience that I'll get to enjoy myself.
I like that.
You know, so I think that it starts with lighting, with appropriate lighting design, control. So both from lighting choices of fixtures to the specific lighting control, being able to have it that I can create scenes. Same with audio, having that audio can follow me throughout the home and blend in. Really enjoy home theater, so I want a very well designed large home theater with appropriate airflow. That's a key critical thing, because if you don't have proper HVAC in that theater room, that has a major impact on how much you will enjoy it. You know, for myself, I would be definitely biased towards monitor audio in with what they call their Synergy series, which is their THX Ultra series, and I would match that with a very large projection screen, comfortable seating. I think that's probably the next key area, and having some, you know, that's a big one. Distributed audio throughout the home, and then all the fun stuff of being able to, you know, put my house to sleep. Most importantly, I think I need to have a vacation button. So that's probably the most critical one. So I don't know if it's as much product, you know, concentric. You know, yes, absolutely. I'm a Lotus guy. I'm a Lutron guy.
Sure.
I'm a monitor audio guy. But there's a lot of great products out there, and I think it's most important that it matches with what you're trying to do. We have a small, narrow focus of curated products, and so I trust those, and I think that, you know, those list of ingredients come out with a great recipe. So
I like that. That's great. That's a great way to send off. So thank you. It just got to work right and in the ways that you need it to. That's our focus. That's our focus. Well, Jason, thank you. I appreciate your time today. We're very grateful for you to be here and to share your expertise and your long-standing history of experience in the field. We really appreciate that. It's why we work with you. Anything you want to share about where people can find you?
You can find us at simplycontrolled.ca. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and I am trying to use this experience, Atlas, to thank you for breaking me out of my comfort zone and being able to share my message or share my information with more people, because the one thing that we talked about in our industry is we all have a lot of great knowledge. We can share that, but you put us in front of a camera and sometimes we forget how to speak. So, right on. Thank you.
Love it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So that's episode 1 of the Tech Savvy series. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We're excited to share more experts like this as we continue down the line. So join us. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. We'll see you next time.